I think
Okay, folks, let's go ahead and get started with today's Writestream. Writestream number 24, The Future or Death of Social Media. What I want to talk about today in terms of the subject is everything as any kind of artist, a musician, writer, visual artist, comic book artist, whatever you're going to do. Everything you need to know about social media. That is, what you need to be doing with it, what kind of content you need to be producing, as well as what the future of social media is and some strategies that I think are going to be future facing. All this comes from my experience as well as my frequent mistakes with social media as far as maximizing the returns on it. The truth is I don't like to do a whole lot with social media. I know that seems weird because I'm on YouTube and there's like a live chat and there's all this stuff that's social, and I like all that stuff. But what I mean is I don't like going to a bunch of different sites to do a bunch of different things. And I don't like, for instance, Facebook. And I'll talk about each of those. It's just something that's kind of against my personality. I'm more of an introvert. And I don't mind public performance, but like having to spend a lot of time on my phone is not what I like to do. And that has stopped me from doing the things which are actually easy to do that I should be doing on social media. And so that's some of the stuff that I'll talk about. Before I get to that, let me go ahead and talk about just some quick news on my front. Okay, remember every single Wednesday, that's when the Writestream happens, 6 o'clock Pacific. Usually it's a couple minutes after 6 because I'll roll some music and get all my cameras and everything set up. I will talk about, equipment setups as well today if you're interested in that. So every Wednesday this happens. Make sure you are on my mailing list, dvspress.com/list. That's my main mailing list, and I will talk about the importance of mailing lists as we get a little bit deeper into the program. Current work in progress is a bit of a sci-fi horror space opera thing, and hopefully I'll be finishing up that short little novella. I'm not sure when I'll be able to finish it up and get it put out. If you follow me on Subscribestar, you're going to get that for free. So any of the little content that I put out, it's going to go out to Subscribestar for free. Same thing with books. I currently don't have an active Patreon. I probably should. I didn't like what Patreon was doing, so I killed my Patreon page. And looking back, that was a bit of a mistake, and I'll talk about that as I go. But that's a current work in progress. I have, in the last few days, I've outlined a couple of new books, actually. And For me, it's always hard to put off working on a new book because I'm so excited about the ideas that I come up with. And once I've fully plotted out a story, I'm like, I really want this to exist. I know exactly how I'm going to work it into what I'm doing. But there's a discipline to being able to say, like, no, I need to finish what I'm currently doing, and then, then I'll come back to that. And right now I have like a lot of books in front of me to write that I'm rather excited to write. But it's hard to find the time right now because caring for an infant is so intense, even with 2 people available at home. Caring for an infant can be quite intense. And our daughter, people might say she's colicky. She has like what's called an incompetent lower esophageal sphincter, which basically means she has really bad heartburn all the time, or especially after she eats. And depending on what my wife eats, because she's breastfed, that can be more or less worse. She'll really only sleep well like on an incline, and that's very difficult to do safely these days, considering all of the recommendations from the various medical panels. So that's what's happening in my neck of the woods. In my neck of the woods, let's talk a little bit about social media and what you need to know about it as a writer, as an artist, as basically anyone that's trying to do something creative and is trying to use social media in some way. First of all, what is social media? So social media is those sites which revolve around information passing both ways, and connections with other people. That's their primary focus. So the big 3 are Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube, Instagram. Those are the main big ones now. The original one that people really jumped on the hype train for was MySpace. That has withered away as a product that was inefficient compared to what Facebook did. Facebook is a rather large behemoth now. It's what I would call a hegemon of the social media scape. So social media has the advantage from a user's perspective of allowing you not only to communicate with other people that you know, but if you're interacting with a content creator that's publishing on social media or is doing operations on it, there's a 2-way communication that happens. So a lot of, say, pre-social media types have adapted their business to this. In the music field, 2 really good examples are Queensryche and Megadeth. So Megadeth, Dave Mustaine has an active social media presence. He has set up forums basically as a Megadeth, social media kind of isolated group there, and really does a lot of work with fans. Same thing with most of the other people in the band, and so that's allowed Megadeth to really kind of talk directly to the fans without having to interface with another media like MTV. Like, it used to be if you were a fan of Megadeth, you'd have to wait for them to be on some interview with some, on MTV or something else before you could hear them talk about anything. But with social media, they could talk about exactly what they want to, whenever they want to, and the fans can ask them questions and they can respond to them. It creates a much better connection. Same thing with Queensryche. Queensryche, after the departure or after the firing of whoever their lead singer was, I can't remember his name right now, and I really should because I used to be a big fan of him. But after they booted him out of the band really adapted well to the social media landscape. So those that existed before it can adapt to it, but there's a lot of groups that haven't, and there's a lot of people that haven't. And so what I call the old media is distorting the social media landscape in a number of ways that you need to watch out for and you need to worry about. Now, the big news with social media the last couple weeks is another round of big deplatformings. Alex Jones, not only was he taken off of Facebook, but you can't share any links to his site, to Infowars.com. Hopefully me mentioning that won't kill the stream. When he was first banned from YouTube, even mentioning his name would kill your stream on YouTube. It would remove, it would basically kill your ability to live stream. It would give you a strike, which is very, very disturbing, right? Not only does he not to be on I can't even mention his name. So if you have any links to Infowars, those will get taken off and you could get banned from Facebook. That's a whole nother level of thought suppression. Milo was also booted off of Facebook, and he'd been booted off of Twitter years ago because it was an opportunity to get him off the platform is the main reason. But so he's removed, and of course he's a gay Catholic conservative married to a black man, which is proof that like your identity levels aren't really going to matter. If you're not liked, if you're not part of the blessed crew, you're at risk. What this really means for anyone, whether or not you plan on exposing yourself a lot or speaking politically at all, is that you're at risk of losing any social media profile. Now, basically, you can be censored and banned at any time for any reason that the companies want to, and there's not going to be any recourse for you. So that means that your strategy with social media has to take that into account. You cannot be reliant on any single platform, any single means of gaining the attention that you want to gain. And I'll talk about some strategies to overcome that. Now, let's talk about what it means to be on social media as an artist, because what social media is, I've heard it described as the attention economy. The attention economy basically means that you're trying to get as much attention from people as possible, however you can, and then you're going to use that attention as some sort of monetary thing, right? Now, some people exist on social media purely for the attention. In fact, that's most people. James Woods got banned from Twitter recently, another one who got purged. There's no reason, he doesn't gain anything financially from Twitter. He just likes to be on Twitter speaking his mind. So that's actually most people. Now, for artists, what your ultimate goal is, well, I want to be able to gain attention for my art. So you have to think about what the goal is. If you're a visual artist, however you're going to use social media, it's to direct people towards your art projects and hopefully have them buy them. So hopefully attract people who are interested in buying whatever art you're producing, and then direct them towards their ability to buy that, convince them to buy it. And one of the ways that you're going to do that is by forming a relationship with them. And you really have to think like, not like somebody who's trying to sell something, but as somebody who's trying to make connections, because that's what social media is about. If you think like somebody who's trying to sell things, you'll find that you won't really sell things. Most people can sniff out a salesman, and they don't like sales tactics. What they want is to know ahead of time if your art is good, and they want to know ahead of time if they're going to get a value out of it and whether they like you. However you gain their attention doesn't matter, but then you have to be able to forge some sort of connection with them where they know you're a human being and you know they're a human being, and then they're going to be more likely to interact with you and support you and become a fan. Fans like the people, they don't just like the art. And that's a weird thing that a lot of people don't think about. So one of the things you'll notice if you're a writer on Twitter, there's all these writer accounts, and all they do is spam their book all day long. And if you actually observe their accounts, you'll notice a couple of things that are out of whack. One of them is the follower and following ratio. So there's a couple things that are hidden on Twitter that you should know about if you're going to be on Twitter. And one of them is really just that even follower counts indicates following and follower. If those are even, it indicates they're part of a follow back loop, and none of their followers are real. So when you see somebody, if they have 100,000 followers and they follow 100,000 people, obviously they're not using Twitter like to observe content. There's really no reason for them to follow you. If they're following you, they're never going to see anything you're posting ever. They only do that follow back loop so that they can say that they're posting some piece of content to 100,000 people. But one of the things that you'll notice if you find these writer accounts, and maybe they have they're following 90,000, they have 90,000 followers, you look at their engagement and it's like 0. So they post something and there's 3 likes out of those 90,000 followers. And one retweet if they're lucky, and the retweet is by another account that's all follow backs. Basically, these people are robots. They're not real. What you want is a real connection with a person on Twitter. That means having conversations, not just posting links to your book or things like that, or posting links to your mailing list, or posting links to somebody else's book. Because what they do is they all try to link each other's books and go round and round and round, and nobody buys anything. You don't want to do that. You want to use social media the way that it's designed to be used, and whatever art you're trying to put out, whatever you're trying to gain attention in order to hopefully convert that attention into attention to your art. that's what you want to be doing, is making a personal relationship and then to gain attention. Now, YouTube, let me talk about the three big social media platforms, which is YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Those are the three biggest ones by traffic and by influence as well. So when somebody gets banned off of Facebook, it's a big deal. Now, of those three, only one of them will actually pay you for putting content out on the site, and that is YouTube. So I will make money off of YouTube merely by being on YouTube and putting out content, because they serve ads on my videos. I'm in good standing, all that kind of stuff. People can post super chats and I'll read and respond to them on these streams. The trap, though, with YouTube is to, and quote, YouTubers get into this, they start doing YouTube exclusively because YouTube makes them money directly. Then they ignore all the other products that they're trying to get attention on. Even to where something that's very profitable can be delayed for months and months and months because the artist who's supposed to be working on it spends all day making YouTube videos because they're making money right now. That's something that has happened and can continue to happen. If you're a visual artist, it's hard to make video content that's going to directly translate into money for you, but you can make video content that's going to funnel people to a product that'll make money for you. A good example from Comicsgate, or I don't even know if he's Comicsgate now, and I don't even like talking about Comicsgate because it's such a drama house these days, but Richard Meyer, who has a YouTube channel called Diversity in Comics, all he did was basically like review comics. He put a phone camera on a comic and would talk about it and review it. And he generated so much attention from that, especially him slamming what he called SJW Marvel, that he was able to crowdfund a comic called Jawbreakers Lost Souls successfully and sell it and make some money. And so that's where the content aligned. Of those three, so YouTube can pay you directly, but you still want to have a product. Twitter will not pay you directly. It's entirely the intention economy. Facebook is actually the opposite. So Facebook, you have to pay to gain people's attention. Facebook, if you are trying to be, basically if you're trying to gain viral attention, you're trying to gain organic growth, Facebook is the absolute worst platform to be on. In my opinion, it's the worst platform to be on as a user. Like, I don't really use it as a user. I really don't like using it as a creator at all. And I only like using it because it has cheap, highly targeted ads because of the fact that it sells your personal information. So one of the ways it sells your personal information is all your likes and interests are there. So if I target an ad, let's say you put Elric Comics as like one of your interests, or you just put comics, Marvel Comics. I can target people who like Marvel Comics and then create an ad that sells something that I think Marvel Comics fans would like, and it could be highly targeted and really cheap to deliver that content, and usually pretty good conversion as well, depending on what you're doing. But the problem with Facebook, if you're a creator and you're trying to gain attention, is that you create a Facebook page and you say, hey, come look at my Facebook page and like it, and you share some content, and nobody shares it, nobody likes it, and you're like, what's happening? All right. My friend made a YouTube channel and he has like 500 subscribers and they watch his videos. Why can't I get 500 likes on my Facebook page? And it's because Facebook hides your content. So if you have a page rather than a personal, and this actually works on the personal level too now, I should mention. So if you have a page, let's say you have like, I don't know, let's see who's in chat today. Let's say we have Nitaku's art page, right? So Nitaku's art page, where you can see my works in progress and how I construct my art. Why doesn't anyone like my page? Well, anyone who did like your page, let's say you got 100 of your friends to like your page, they won't see your content unless you pay Facebook to promote your post. Now, if you're willing to pay to play, Facebook is a great place to be. If you're looking for that organic growth, it's the worst place to be. So depending on your budget, Facebook could be the absolute best or it could be the absolute worst thing. For me, because I don't like paying money to Facebook, a behemoth that I don't like, I don't use it much. In fact, I probably would have deleted my personal Facebook if it weren't for the fact that people are constantly contacting me on my Facebook writer page, and I want to run ads on it on occasion. That's the only reason that I keep my Facebook page at all. So you can have a Facebook page, and you ought to have a Facebook page, but it won't get any organic growth whatsoever. It's just a place for maybe somebody found you on YouTube. they can like you on Facebook to keep appraised of your updates, but chances are they won't see them. Facebook won't show them because one of the things you'll notice users always complaining about is like, why don't I see a chronological order anymore? Why? They got rid of that because they can't advertise as efficiently in chronological order. Now, if you are an artist and you post your DeviantArt page on your personal Facebook to your friends, they might also bury that depending on what the content is. If I post a YouTube, I've done this before. I posted a YouTube video like on my personal page. None of my friends saw it because Facebook has figured out that that's me. And so it wants me to pay to boost my own post. And that'll have like a boost post button. So it already knows, like, I can't even share me with my friends. It's impossible to do that. The only way is if you make a video directly on Facebook that is content. Then your friends will see it. But if you do it on a page, the people who follow the page won't see it. So you should know that. All right. So those are the big three. What kind of content do you want to make on those? Well, one of the other pitfalls that people make is they try to do the same thing on every social media site. And that doesn't work because social media sites are geared toward different kinds of content. So let's start with YouTube. YouTube, which you're watching now, it's primarily videos, right? Live streams as well, but primarily videos. So if you post the video to Twitter, link to the video, some people on Twitter might see it and watch the video. But that's not going to gain any attention. If you want to gain attention on Twitter, you have to tweet things which gain people's attention. You gotta tweet out hot takes. You gotta include the hashtags and all that kind of stuff. You have to do Twitter content to get people's attention on Twitter. And that's going to be short, very, very poignant things that you can say. The problem with Twitter, and this is actually the good thing about Twitter too, is that because in Twitter you don't have enough space to actually be specific with anything you're saying, you get a bunch of people that hate you. So Twitter is the place where like seeds of hate blossom into terrible trees of horror. Twitter's not a place where people will be positive towards you. It's the most hostile social media environment in the history of man. And in fact, one of the worst places to spend your time if you're not willing to relentlessly and aggressively block people, which is what I recommend everybody do. So if you're going to try to get attention on Twitter, you got to do Twitter content. If you're doing Twitter content, you're going to get a lot of haters. You got to be able to deal with that. YouTube content is all about videos. And because YouTube is so expansive, there's a couple of things that you need to know about doing YouTube. The first one is that like my channel does a lot of very diverse content. That's actually something that you probably don't want to do if you have the option. So like if you want to do a YouTube video that's on retro gaming, if you actually want people to subscribe and watch your videos when they come out, you need to only talk about retro gaming. If you're doing it as an artist, however, you need to think along a different line, which is that you need to do the videos which are going to attract the people who you want to view your product. So let's say you're coming out with a comic book, right? You're trying to crowdfund a comic book, or that's something that's a goal like later on. You've drawn a comic, you want to sell it, right? What you need to do is you need to make content that people who are interested in buying independent comics are going to watch. So that is usually going to be stuff that's focused on other comics, right? Reviews of Marvel stuff. You could just talk about list of favorite superheroes, list of favorite comics. People who are, even better at this stuff than I am will have a list of things that you can do as writers. So if you're a fantasy writer, one of my best converting pieces of content is just a list of what fantasy books to read to get into fantasy. Now, it seems like that content is directed towards people who don't read fantasy, but it's the opposite. Somebody who likes fantasy will click it just to see what I have to say and whether they agree with it. And if they agree with it, they'll like me and they might buy my book. And if they don't agree with me, then they'll tell me they don't agree with me, and then we'll have a conversation, and we'll probably still become friends, and they might still buy my book, right? So this is a thing that you have to think about. So if you're a visual artist, you can do stuff you can analyze the art, you can show how to draw, you can talk about your favorite comics, you can talk about your favorite painters, you can do live painting sessions are great. People who are not great painters but love art, love videos. Howard Lyon does these. So Howard Lyon's a guy, he's probably best known for doing Magic the Gathering art. He does a bunch of great religious art as well. He'll do these videos that are time compressed, him painting the painting. And then you can go buy the painting for a couple $100, and you're like, you see him do the process, and it's really amazing to watch. And it really makes you want to be more engaged with him in his art. And he's very, very friendly too. So he's one of the guys that, like, if you're a painter, just kind of look what he does. Now, he has a lot of other work on the side, right? And he generates, he draws book covers. So that's another thing you can do as an artist, is direct people towards work for hire. So think about the people who are going to give you work for hire and make content that attracts them. So if you're, let's say you're a painter and you're like, well, I want to draw some images for like CDs and book covers, right? So what you do is you make some videos on like basic good book cover design, or how to draw a good fantasy book cover. Somebody who is not interested, who's a fantasy writer like me, will come across that video and be like, let me see what goes into a good fantasy book cover, because I need to know one, because I need to buy one for my fantasy book. And they see it, boom, oh, this guy really knows what he's doing. Maybe I can pay him to make me a cover. And you go through the content, and all of a sudden you've made $500, $1,000 by doing a painting for somebody for their book cover. So nothing converts like content. That's the big one. So nothing converts like content, and you have to make the content that's going to attract the people that need to see your product, and the people you want to have a connection with long term. Now for me, I do a lot of content focused on writing, which means most of you are here who are writers or artists or something. And that's fine. I don't really sell products that are related to writing. I just do this because I really enjoy it. And I like talking about this stuff. If I were really smart, I'd probably have a couple books on writing, like some writing manuals, or, I turn some of this content into like a written ebook that people could buy. And maybe I'll do that in the future, once I raise my IQ a little bit and start actually trying to monetize what I'm doing. But mostly some of the things that one of the reasons I don't sell stuff, I don't like author services. On a moral level, I kind of object to them. Not that they're super immoral, but I think they often prey upon the naive. And I don't want that. I want people to be successful and to not lose their ass in their art. I care about art as a general thing, so I'm happy being more charitable with all of my information versus trying to convert everything to sales. Let me go ahead and take some questions, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of social media. So let's go back up to the top. If you want my attention, make sure you do at David Stewart. I'll see a big orange thing that lets me know I need to read your content or read your comment. If otherwise, I'm going to assume you might be replying to somebody else. Somebody asks if I know the Tragically Hip. I know who they are. I don't really listen to them though. Glitchy Gear. Some people claim that a social media presence is necessary for gaining a modern audience, especially a young one. Do you agree? It depends, right? A social media presence is necessary for gaining an audience that is on social media. If the audience is not on social media, how will you get their attention? I don't know. You're going to fill out newspaper ads? If you are a published author with a big firm, social media is not an issue because they're doing all of the marketing. If you're a writer for Marvel, you don't really have to worry that much about your Twitter presence. And you can see that most of them don't, which is why they're horribly toxic. Like most Marvel writers are just awful on Twitter. And most Marvel artists, actually. So it depends, right? Twitter, I think, is probably the least monetizable of any of the platforms. Although Facebook is, it's one of the best for growth if you're willing to do Twitter content. I should mention at this point too that there's some other ones, right? There's Instagram, which is entirely visual. If you're a visual artist, you can be doing Instagram. There's TikTok, which I really don't know how to use, but I probably ought to because since it's up and coming, they do a lot less censorship. There's Snapchat, which some people use. I don't really know how I would use it for my business, so I don't really know much about it. I always avoided it because I thought it was just for trading nude photos and pornography, so I just avoided it. There's alternative stuff like Gab, BitChute, Minds. These basically work like the bigger counterparts. So Gab works pretty much like Twitter, Minds works like Facebook, BitChute works like YouTube, right? There's also Steemit, which is its own weird thing. Dailymotion, of course, works like YouTube. And then there's longer form content that you should know about too, like Medium. So if you're a writer, being able to use Medium is good. Medium is extremely ban heavy though, and they will ban people for whatever reason. So never count on traffic that you get from Medium to be permanent. Let's keep going. Jared says social media is definitely a double-edged sword. That is a bigger topic for conversation. Social media is harmful to people psychically, especially Facebook, which is why, Facebook is bad for everyone involved, I feel like. But at the same time, social media is great for the end user because you can make better connections than you would otherwise, and more interesting connections, and get to talk to people that you actually want to talk to. It's great. It's amazing, and it has big negatives, but most of the negatives I see are with Facebook, not with YouTube, not with Twitter, but Facebook. Because Facebook, there's this attachment to real life people, and they constantly, at least back in the day, they would juice you constantly by sending you notifications. So-and-so liked your picture, and you would like, and it was just an antisocial way to avoid having deeper conversations with people. Nitaku says, art is the cornerstone of free thought. Those who seek to censor art seek totalitarian control of our lives. Their goal is to destroy art and replace it with propaganda. Absolutely. And there's multiple levels to it too, right? I think the big tragedy is there's this stance that says, hey, everybody should be able to express themselves and have an opportunity to share their art with people who want to see it. And then there's another side that says, no, we don't believe that. And there's no balancing that. It's like, well, I think you should be free to say that you don't believe that. Well, they just end up gaining the power. It's the fundamental problem with free speech is that you allow speech which convinces people there should be free speech, right? There's other things that destroy free speech. The fact that, what I call Jeff Tate. Yes, Jeff Tate is the singer for Queensryche, or was. Great singer. Not a very nice guy, apparently, according to a lot of people that know him. All right, let's see here. Twitter says AJ was banned because he posted a video where he publicly harassed a journalist. Does this mean Brian Sims will be banned too since he harassed Catholic girls? Brian Sims won't. So let me respond to the archiver here. So here's the thing that you should know about social media. You should never count on any of your accounts being permanent and not being banned, even if you're like doing something very innocuous. So another ban came down from Facebook today that was Bounding Into Comics. That's an independent comics website. It's not really a political website except in the fact that it will give interviews to Vox Day on Alt Hero Comics, and it will give interviews to Comicsgate people who are big independent creators, right? So the competition to something like Bleeding Cool was just had their 250,000 followers just removed from them. Like their page is gone. They're done. So you can never count on these people keeping you around. The exception are what I call the blessed. So the blessed are these large corporations and their minions who are on social media. They will not be banned for any reason, ever. It'll never happen. CNN will never get banned from Twitter. It doesn't matter how much they lie. It doesn't matter how much they push Russiagate and whatever other conspiracy theory they're going with. And it doesn't matter how much their reporters and the journalists who work for them spam hateful things, call for the genocide of white people, which is what people who work for the New York Times has done. It doesn't matter how violent and how wicked they say things. It doesn't matter how much they explicitly break the explicit rules. They will never get banned. They are the blessed. The rules, but do the rules exist for everyone else? No. You'll get banned even if you follow the rules. So Paul Joseph Watson was kicked off of Facebook. He never broke any rules. He's just a content creator and actually a pretty introverted and not a super confrontational guy. But he never broke any explicit rules. He was removed for being, quote, dangerous. Milo removed for being dangerous. That's the name of his book. A little bit of an interesting coincidence. So if you're blessed, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're watching this, you're not one of the blessed. You aren't. You're only going to be one of the blessed if you work for a mainstream news publication or you're associated with them. So if you work for Marvel, or that's not a news publication, but a large media group. If you work for Disney, Marvel, if you work for any of the CNN stuff, if you work for Reason Magazine, I don't know why. They're blessed as well. They'll never get kicked off. It doesn't matter what they say or do. Though they're pretty reasonably behaved. Most of the people on the right are really well behaved, and then they get kicked off. And the people, quote, on the left don't ever get kicked off. Louis Farrakhan got kicked off as being called right wing, and he's the leader of a literal religion. So you can get banned for your religion too. So don't forget about that. Anyway, the point I want to make is even the little guy, you'll be tolerated, but if you get your head above a certain level, you might be on the chopping block. Trevor Jones, the kinds of content consumers and how you interact with them. Yeah, so that's basically social media. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on the director attempting to have Sonic redesigned through internet criticism? I think that's actually like a good thing, right? Because the people who are most vocal were really the fans. So your main demographic, if they don't like it, that's going to be a problem. If you follow through and release the movie, there's people who will boycott it just on the design alone. And then as soon as I heard that, there were people complaining like, oh, the poor animators will have to work over. It's like, God forbid there be more demand for your job. They're going to have a longer, they're going to keep their job longer to finish the movie. Or they're going to have to hire more animators. God forbid that employment increase. Let's see here. Also, Facebook has a shadow account on you. If someone you know links their contacts to Facebook, posts a picture with you, or posts about going out for coffee with you, shadow account. I wasn't quite aware of that, but I've heard of that. Jared says, have I missed a lot? Yeah, but you can watch it later. It doesn't matter. Let's see here. Can we pay you to make a fantasy book cover? Yeah, I mean, but I can do the photo comp stuff. So the Needle Ash covers, those were mine. I designed those. I designed the cover to Crown a Sight. I designed the cover. I didn't do this image. This is Karen Byatt. So I designed this cover. So there's this one. If you want to, yeah, I mean, I could do that for a couple $100 or something if you absolutely needed to. But there's so many other good book cover designers out there. I do it mostly for fun and to save money, because if I save $200 on a book cover, that means that factors into something like 200 less books I have to sell to make my money back, right? Now 200 books is not hard for me to sell anymore, but at one time it really was. At one time it was very hard to sell 200 books, and it's actually still fairly difficult to sell 200 books. It's just easier for me now than it used to be because I'm better at the business. Itaku says, would it make sense to make review videos of similar genres that are similar to what you write? For instance, if I'm writing sci-fi, I review sci-fi books, movies, or video games. Absolutely. That's what you should do. So instead of reviewing them, well, I mean, you should review them, but you should talk about them. And the more you're able to stay on the positive side, the more that's going to convert. However, the more harsh you are with your criticisms, the more attention you will get. So you got to balance these two. Like, I have a reputation. Every time I post a negative movie review, it's like, this guy hates every movie that he sees. It's like, if you were to actually look through all of my movie reviews and my book reviews, like, I like a lot more movies than I dislike. The negative reviews are a small amount, but because they get more attention, most people who casually watch the review videos, they only see the negative ones, and so they think I hate everything. And it's the opposite. I like most things, and it's really hard to make me actually hate something, because I can see, as an artist, I can see everything that went into doing that, and I can see how somebody would like it. And especially when I break down everything that happens, like in a big piece of art like a movie, it's really hard to hate a movie. And I can honestly say it's very difficult to have a movie be like a 1 out of 10. It'd have to be something like Blue Movie. And if you don't know what that is, it was basically a pornographic movie with nothing in it from the 60s, done by Andy Warhol. It's a terrible, terrible piece of, quote, cinema. It's like a home video of people talking too quietly to hear and then having sex with each other. It's terrible. Ergo Cinema, when you were doing so many different things, writing books on different topics, doing videos, making music, would you rather create several brands for each branch? So this is a great question. There's two sides to it, right? Right now, it used to be that on YouTube for sure, you wanted to make separate channels for each of those because YouTube didn't use subscribers and stuff to kind of game the algorithm. So you wanted separate things, and it actually could be good to have separate things for a robustness reason. But it's generally best if you have those separate channels to cross post on them. So like, let's say you have a bunch of people that follow your like music Facebook page. You say, hey, well, I came out with a book too. That's good. Now, if I were really focusing on music, I do most things because I want to. This is something I need to get out of the way. So money, because like if all my books were to get unpublished off of Amazon and if I was disappeared off the internet, I wouldn't be at a big loss. I'm fine. My family's going to be fine. I'm pretty robust. So the more robust thing is to have a different channel for each one. So if one gets shut down or if one doesn't take off, then you have the other one that's there. Now, I keep saying like gets shut down. I know a lot of you are not planning on doing like highly political stuff, but you never know. You may do something that's rather innocuous. Sometimes it's hard to avoid talking politics in like a book review. So if you do a book review and the politics are part of the book, later on you could get banned because these things also, if they make a rule, it's retroactive. So if they decide anyone who mentioned Alex Jones gets banned, that could be anyone that mentioned him in like 2014. It could be a big problem. $20 from Shenlong, thank you. So what do you think the outcome will be of all this tech censorship in 5 and 10 years? Alternative media gaining prominence, Facebook going the way of MySpace, U.S. laws preventing Twitter bans. That is such a great question. I'm not sure, but I know this. I know it won't be the same as it is now or as it was a couple of years ago. What I'm going to guess is there's going to be a cycle that we're going to start observing. Things occur in cycles, and the better you are able to observe them, like, the business cycle, the more you're able to predict and operate within those. People who are really good at understanding the business cycle know kind of how to shift their investments around at different points in the cycle to avoid big losses. So the only thing that's really going to be safe on Facebook is stuff like CNN. The thing is that any social media platform grows because of what it offers as an alternative to what is established. So that which grows because it offers an alternative to that which is established, and this is true for anything. Nirvana was popular because it was an alternative, hence called alternative music, an alternative to the popular rock of the time like Guns N' Roses and Metallica. So Facebook grew in popularity because it was an alternative not just to MySpace, but people were getting on Facebook who'd never done social media. It was an alternative to inline content that only went one way, meaning you read the newspaper, right? You watched TV. Facebook lets you see what somebody said and respond to it as far as content creation goes. Also, it was something new that allowed you to see people's pictures without having to mail them the picture, right? So you could see a picture from somebody's experience without having to go over to their house and look at it. So as an alternative, it was a big boon. I can talk to somebody without having to pick up the phone, without having to write them a letter, go over to their house. I can see their pictures. I can have some sort of life interaction with this person and know about them and know what they're doing without having to do these other things which take more time and effort. And that's really how a bunch of people ended up in Facebook. So people flooded onto Facebook because it was an alternative to real life that was more efficient. Since then, we've realized that a lot of those efficiencies harm people and kind of mess with your psyche because you're not supposed to have social interactions that occur at that speed and in that way. It kind of messes with your brain. And I have a story. The first part of it's going to be coming out with Jesse White's Green Devil Comics, I think. It's called SockNet, and it's a dystopian future where people are essentially controlled through their social media access. And SockNet at that point is a government entity. So I don't know what it's going to be in 5 or 10 years. Alternative media will grow the more that you get a clampdown in censorship, because what will happen is if YouTube ends up being a platform that's boring, boring is the worst thing. You can't be boring. You got to be interesting. So if YouTube becomes boring, that is when it will lose its place to something else, to BitChute, to whatever else it's going to be, probably BitChute for YouTube. And here's why, is people got on YouTube because YouTube was more interesting than TV. And it had more different kinds of stuff. It was better than TV. It's like, oh, I don't have to watch this P90X commercial, order the P90X videos, and hopefully they'll inform me how to get in shape. It's like, I can just watch Scooby's channel, and he tells me all the exercises I need to do and the exact nutrition, and he tells me everything that I need to know. And if I don't like what he says, then the Hodge twins will tell me something different. And if I don't like what they say, then Tiger Fitness will tell me something different. I can watch Jay Cutler's workout, and I don't have to buy a DVD or hope it comes on. It was great. So YouTube was the first one on the scene, but as YouTube eliminates most of its content or hits the wallets of the people producing the content, because a lot of people produce content specifically just because they can make money at it. As they hit the wallets, more and more people are going to end up in BitChute. The viewers are going to go to whatever's most interesting. So YouTube will lose its ground. I feel like they keep trying to make it more like TV. They emphasize CNN, they emphasize MSNBC. People are on YouTube because they don't want to watch CNN and MSNBC. They want to watch something else. They want to watch something different. So those users, as the experience declines, all they have to do is try one other thing, and if it offers a better experience immediately, they won't ever come back to YouTube, and that'll be the decline. So there will be some alternatives. I don't believe Gab will supplant Twitter, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. The main one is that the problem with Twitter is actually not the problem with Twitter is who runs it and who's in charge, and the fact that the rules aren't the rules. The problem is not that it has rules, which Gab takes the approach that Twitter's rules are too restrictive and that we're going to be a free speech platform. Well, what Gab ends up being is a place where people either create false flags against Gab by spreading child pornography, or they look at it as an opportunity to actually spread child pornography, which is far worse. Or they engage in bell ringing. One of the problems with Twitter is that it's not very strong. I should say one of the good things about Twitter is that it's strong enough against bell ringing that you can actually have a good experience on Twitter if you know what you're doing. If you don't follow people you don't like and you block people who are bell ringing at you, then it's a great experience. So Gab won't supplant that because it doesn't know why people are on Twitter and what can make the Twitter experience better. If you go over to Gab, you're almost guaranteed to have a worse experience than Twitter, unless you're a person who only thrives on trolling people and creating negative attention, in which case you'll probably have a worse experience because there's so much less people on Gab. Same thing with Dissenter. So Dissenter I don't really interact with, but people can use it. One more thing before I get to that $5 super chat. U.S. laws passed preventing Twitter bans. I don't think that'll happen because the people making the laws would really like to ban Donald. They really want people banned. They want to play nice with Twitter and get people like Donald Trump banned off of Twitter. That's what they really want. Now the problem with creating alternatives, and Gab has experienced this problem, is that it's not just the difficulty of building a massive infrastructure and a massive user base that Facebook has. The problem is hosting. Gab has had its hosting removed several times, meaning the people who are running the servers and allowing the traffic to come into their servers, you're renting the server space. They say no, we're not gonna host your site anymore. So if no one hosts your site, you're kind of screwed. If IRCAN, the internet Corporation for Names and Numbers, whatever it's called, ICANN, I think. If they decide to not register your domain in some part of the world, you're screwed there as well. So there's a bunch of ways that people can be deplatformed. I said I'd come back to Patreon. I'm going to do that now. Patreon, I wish I never got rid of it because I took a principled stand and it did nothing. That's my thing. So I took a principled stand and it did nothing. Very few people switched over to Subscribestar. All it did was hit me in the wallet. So not a huge hit, right? It's a very small hit. But I was really disappointed with the fact that nothing happened. And I think that's going to be the case. I've been reminded of this. Don't listen to what people say. Follow what they do. People are going to ride the ride till the wheels fall off. People are not going to abandon. Some people will abandon Twitter off of principle. Most people won't, because that's where the people are. And if you're a content creator, you need to be where the normies are, because those are the people that you need to have a connection with. The problem with like Minds.com, I'm not a fan of Minds the way it works. I don't like to use it. But the problem with it is not the fact that it doesn't work the way I want it to. The problem is there's no normies on Minds. None of the people that you actually want attention from are on Minds. So you can go on Minds, and it's good to go on Minds for like a robustness reason, but you're not really going to get the traction you want. You need to go wherever the people are as a content creator. And that's the problem, right? As a user, you can make choices, but as a content creator, you're kind of tied into where the people are. So I kind of wish I hadn't dumped Patreon. I'm sure Patreon would ban me or would die at some point anyway. One of the things about Patreon, why are they deplatforming people from Patreon? Well, when they hit you in the wallet and demonetize your fitness videos or something, Patreon offers a way for people to just pay for that directly and avoid the entire problem of demonetization. Patreon experienced this as well. So the payment processor says we're not going to do it. We're not going to let you. We're not going to make money with you, which is bizarre. We're not going to process your payments and take our cut. What? Yeah, we're not going to do it because we have the option to do it. It's not about money because otherwise people would act differently. So with Patreon, use Patreon until Patreon blows up or it bans you. But you should also have a Subscribe Star. You should also have a PayPal. You should also have other ways to sell your stuff. So you should have other robust avenues. So yes, you should have an account on all the big social media sites, but you should also have accounts on BitChute. You should have accounts on Minds, Gab, whatever it's going to be. And you should try posting to those. I don't really post much to Gab because there's not a whole lot of reason. BitChute, obviously everything goes to BitChute automatically from YouTube, and I love BitChute. All that kind of stuff. So anyway, $5 from 80s Nostalgia Guy. There's something more sinister going on here. They're conditioning people to be afraid of expressing their true opinions. Absolutely. Like I said, they'll hit you in the wallet for people that they have the option to, they'll hit you in the wallet. They'll demonetize you if they don't like what you're saying. And that works really good against the little guy. Likewise, that's why they want to remove anonymity, because if you're on Twitter shitposting and someone figures out that's you could get fired from your real life job. Or people could start a campaign to get you fired. I know that happened to Thunderfoot. A bunch of people were calling his employer trying to get him fired. This is really common stuff. Or swatting. You have major exposure online. The more exposure you have, the more dangerous it is for you as a little guy. The only people who can really never worry about it are people like Nassim Taleb, who are millionaires, independent of whatever happens on Twitter, right? Or Dan Bilzerian, a guy I used to know in Las Vegas. He has so much money, it doesn't matter. Like, he doesn't need social media to make money. He's there just because he wants to be. He wants the attention, and he likes the attention and likes what it does. So, that's it, right? So unless you are independently wealthy somehow, you're they kind of got you in a bad place. So people self-censor before they begin talking. There's more to it than that. I'm going to get a little bit weird, and I apologize. But, the book of Revelation, and if you don't worship Satan and receive the mark of the beast, you won't be able to interact with the economy. That's where we're at. Now, I don't know if that was a revelation of the time we're in now, or this is something that happens throughout history. I'm not sure. But unless you profess satanic beliefs and avoid expressing the truth, right? And I'm going to say this independent of religion. You don't have to be a Christian, but if you just express the truth, you can be banned. So the truth versus either being silent or actively expressing the lie. In the future, they may require you to actively express a lie, declare something that is abhorrent. So when you see, Converse put out an ad, they had this 10-year-old drag queen. This is a abused, exploited minor who appears autistic when you see him in videos. This kid is basically the victim of child abuse and manipulation, sexual abuse probably, and they're putting him on the cover. Now, if you speak out against that, if you say, no, there's no, you should not be making a 10-year-old dress up like a drag queen and go dance for dollars at a gay strip club. That's wrong. Then you can get banned, right? Now, you can stay silent, but if you say that, which you know is right or wrong, and you could be an atheist and know that that's wrong, right? You don't have to be a Christian. I'm working on abstract principles here. If you're not worshiping Satan, you won't receive the mark of the beast, and you won't get to take part in the economy. You'll get deplatformed. You could lose your bank account, right? You could lose PayPal access. You could lose anything that you would to make money out in that worldwide economy. And what do? I guess, if I had to, I could go to my neighbor and like pick oranges. But a lot of people, they're desperate. They don't have other options that are just sitting around for them to do that. And so when you have them, like when you have their grain in their hand, if you have their millstone, you got them in a bad spot. And so that's what a lot of people are worried about. Like, oh, if I'm, and here, I'll just say this, okay? So people are like, I'm gonna keep it clean. I'm gonna be apolitical. I'm gonna be non-political. It's like, you're not gonna gain any attention. In the attention economy, you have to be controversial. You have to say something that someone will disagree with. And the more controversial it is, the more you will gain attention. I'm just letting you know. So one of the things that I engage in on social media is I engage in attraction and rejection. This is something that, like, I don't want to call it like feminine because it's not like, but it's the way that women attract men. You attract men and you turn away the ones that don't meet the standard. So I put out content that's designed to attract lots of eyes. And then if somebody doesn't fit, like if they're not looking like someone I want to have a conversation with, have a relationship with, or maybe buy a book or something, right? Then I'll ban them. And I'll just remove them from my life. I'll just remove them from the sphere of influence. So they can't put anything into it. Likewise, or they'll do it automatically. And the way that I identify them is that, I make a big piece of content, it brings people in. I make another piece of content that's very me, that's very much expresses who I am, and somebody will have like some kind of explosive rant against, my beliefs. And so then I just say, okay, you don't like me? Cool. You're banned. Or you've already unsubscribed yourself. Bye-bye. So I attract and reject. So you have that continual cycle where you do things which gain lots of attention, and then you reject the people who are negative to that, right? And there's people who are negative in the attention economy. So if I block somebody on Twitter that basically says, in the attention economy, you're a net negative. If I ban you on YouTube, it basically says, in the attention economy, you are a net negative, meaning you are going to hurt what I'm doing far more than you're going to help, or you're interfering with my ability to have normal conversations with other people. That's the main thing. So if I'm on Twitter and I say like, boom, here's this thing I want to say about Star Wars, and a bunch of people come in saying that I should be like raped to death by a bantha, I just block them, because then they can't have any more conversations with me ever. They'll never interfere with what I'm doing again. It's really easy. You should block aggressively on Twitter. And if you're one of my Twitter friends and you're one of those people who posts a little screenshot of somebody blocking you and they're like, they couldn't handle it, they blocked me. No, don't do that. That's kind of a gamma male thing. You should stop doing that. The person blocked you because you're annoying them, and chances are you intended to annoy them. You intended to get a rise out of them. You intended to speak aggressively to them, and I do it on Twitter too. So you're not alone with that attitude or those actions. But you shouldn't think that being blocked indicates something about the person being afraid of you at all. Chances are you're just like a gnat, and he's slapping you, right? Don't get mad if somebody blocks you. If you don't like a person and you don't like their content, why would you be upset that person blocked you? But I get this all the time. Why would you block me? It's like, you don't like me or my content, so why do you care? Because I can't harass you if you block me. I can't keep harassing you and spamming every video if you ban me from YouTube. So anyway, that's that. Let me back up a little bit and answer some more questions on this stuff. Jared says, I'm prepared to being thrown off Twitter, Facebook and Twitter despite not doing much of anything to warrant getting banned, but one can be banned for anything these days. Yeah, unless you're the blessed. Speaking of social media, did anyone watch the Technocracy video series by YouTuber The Mysterious Mr. Enter? I have not seen it, but based on your name, Archon of Plagues, I like that name. I like that handle. I might watch it. I like reviews. Thank you for doing them, by the way. Thank you for watching them. I really like reviewing stuff, and I like talking about stuff that I like. So one of the things I noticed on the last Marvel review, lots of people loved Endgame and lots of people hated Endgame. But because it was a review that was basically presented in a way that focused on the positive, there was virtually no hate. And I've also eliminated people that I know would come in and spam it with telling me to kill myself and things like that. But it was even people who like really hated it. There was no hate to me. There was just, I disagree with you on this. And it was like, it's great. That's what I want. That's exactly the conversations I want to see and I want people to have, because I can actually hear what you're saying and consider it and think about your point, or maybe even see that your point is like better than mine, or that it's equal to mine. And I can see why some people would hate Endgame. I think the emotional delivery of Endgame outweighed the problems with its plot. Nitaku says, is it that negative reviews generate more controversy? They generate more attention. So they generate more attention. Just think of Saint Anger, right? Saint Anger, when that came out, people were shocked by how bad that album was, that Metallica album. So if you came out with a negative review, you were going to get a lot of attention because people were like, I can't be the only one that thinks this way. So when I came out with my Force Awakens video, nigh on however many years ago, it got a lot of attention because people were dumbfounded that others liked this movie and they didn't. So they just needed somebody else to articulate what they were thinking. Or they liked it and they were just so curious that someone wouldn't like it, they had to see it. Or they were so upset that other people didn't like the same thing. That's where the controversy is. So people were so upset that somebody didn't like what they liked, they had the need to come in and threaten me with whatever physical harm they wanted to do. I had people say they were going to track me down and kill me unless I took down the video. So who's the most unbalanced fandom? I don't know. Film Girl says, I totally agree. I think that people should think about the effort that goes into creating something before you deem it bad or terrible. It's really hard. Just as an aside, think about how hard it is to make a movie that's great. What has to be good in a movie for a movie to be good? The score has to be good. The story has to be good. The dialogue has to be on point. The acting has to be stellar. The editing has to be correct. The cinematography has to be correct. Correct color correction. Correct audio engineering. Everything has to be on point for a movie to be good. And if there's one of those elements that's bad, if the music is bad, it can make the movie bad. If the acting is bad, you can make a movie unwatchable, no matter how good the dialogue is. And in some cases, good dialogue can not save bad acting, but bad acting can save good acting can save bad dialogue. So that's something that is really interesting to think about. It makes it hard for me to hate any movie. I often try to be positive when I talk about movies, but with some films, the new Star Wars trilogy, for example, I can't see as many positive things as I would like to. Yeah, me too. And the negatives are so profound in some cases that you can't see any positives. The Last Jedi had some great visual moments, and the music in it was great. The music did more work than anything like dialogue-wise in the movie, but there was some really bad stuff that people remember the bad things, right? Pretty easily. They remember, it's hard to make somebody really be moved. They remember that. They remember being moved and feeling emotional. And they remember being upset by something being bad, but they'll often forget things that are good in between. If they're kind of just in the middle of good, Nitaku says sometimes a negative review is deemed harassment by the powers that be. Yes, sometimes, but it's not. Now there is something that I've seen on Twitter last day or two, people complaining about Mark Waid saying like negative reviews are not for me. And a positive review is not for me. People are like, oh, negative criticism is good. And it's like, I don't know, guys. You don't have the exposure that I have maybe, but the reviews really aren't for me. I appreciate people reviewing my books. I really do. But those are for other consumers, which is why I want you to review it, so that another reader can make a good decision about whether they want to read my book. It's not so that what am I going to do with a review on a book? Am I going to change the book? No, I'm not going to rewrite my book. I already wrote it. So negative reviews on things I already do doesn't really matter. Now, feedback on like how I deliver a video is something that has like a periodical content to it. Absolutely. So if somebody says, I really don't like your PowerPoint format. It's not as good as you're just talking. I'm like, okay. All right, well, good. Let me think about whether I should change that or something like that. Right? That's an actual criticism, and I can take that and use it informationally. I can use informationally, negative criticisms from books, but only when I'm thinking about how I'm going to execute the next book. I'm not really interested in rewriting books. Someone's like, I didn't like this part of the story or that part of the story. I didn't understand that. I'm like, I'm not gonna change the book for you. It's not going to happen. So what's the point of that negative criticism? Again, Mark Waid's correct. The review is actually for the consumer. It's not for him. And that's how you should think. You should think about informing other consumers, right? I already wrote the book. That's what it is, right? Maybe I'll do the next one better, but you shooting me negative reviews over and over again, that's not anything I care about. And if I were Mark Waid, and Mark Waid has a ton of exposure, you guys have to think about the average person gets 0 to 1 negative criticisms of them or their job per day and gets 0 to 1 insults per day. Mark Waid gets hundreds of both. So I don't really like Mark Waid, but I have a certain amount of human empathy for understanding that like human beings aren't made to be subjected to endless negative statements about them or their work all day, every day. That's why people who work in like call centers, it's why they're so suicidal. It's terrible. It's not. It's one of the downsides of social media is it makes it, because it's two-way, it amplifies things that normally would be, much more normalized. Film Girl says, thank you for answering my question. You're welcome. 80s Nostalgia Guy, super chat for $5. I appreciate that. Those who work in schools are most vulnerable. Yeah. What if a student asks a teacher who is a Christian what they think about the homosexual lifestyle? Yeah, now that's it, right? So I'm going to make I was going to make this philosophical point at the end of the video, but I'll give you a taste right now, which is that there's no such thing as separation of church and state. I know that sounds weird. Follow me. Church is not just an organization. While you can separate government and church into separate organizations, neither one exists. There's no such thing as government. You can't put your hand on government. You can go and touch City Hall. You can touch the building, but it's just a building. And you can go touch the church. But ultimately, the church is just a building, right? As much sacred power as you put upon it. It's a physical object. So where does faith reside? Faith resides in human beings. It resides in us, whatever our beliefs are. So if you're a Christian and you have beliefs about the homosexual lifestyle, those reside in you. Now, the problem with thinking that state and church are separate is that you have people who go to church who also work for the state. So right away, it's not separate. And the only way to make it separate is if the people who work for the state are explicitly atheist. That's the only way you can have a separation of church and state. So there's no such thing as a true secular state. The secular state that existed in the United States, like via the Constitution, originally didn't apply to the individual states. It was just the federal government. Pennsylvania had an official state religion, which I want to say it was like Methodist or Anglican or something, right? So that's come to be what's called an incorporated power, meaning, or an incorporated right, meaning it's a right that the federal government can't violate and the states can't violate. The problem with that, right, is that as time goes on and the scope of the state increases, it's going to cross religious boundaries. It's inevitable. Just as an example, let's say you have a government job that requires you to work on Saturday and Sunday. Let's say it just requires you to work on Saturday. That necessarily excludes all Orthodox Jews from performing that state function. So you have excluded from the state an entire set of people based on their religious beliefs, because Orthodox Jews will not work on the Sabbath unless it is of necessity. Like if a doctor is needed to heal someone, to cure someone, that's considered acceptable work. I'm not Jewish, so if you're Jewish, you of course can correct me in the comments or whatever you want. But if the job is trimming trees on Saturday, an Orthodox Jew can't do that job. So right away, you've excluded everyone with that kind of belief. And as the state grows, there's more and more people that have that exclusionary, that have to be excluded from working for the state. Just as an example, there was a bunch of news stories about a woman, I don't remember what state. She refused to grant marriage licenses. She worked as like a clerk. She refused to grant marriage licenses to gay couples. And there was a bunch of hubbub, if you can't put your beliefs aside to do this, you're terrible, basically focusing on her being evil. But the bigger concept here was that the state, which she had always worked for, she'd always had a job, was asking her to violate her religious beliefs, which means either the state can't make her do that or she can't work for the state. So as time goes on, the people who work for the state are increasingly non-religious. At least I say atheist, let's just say agnostic, right? Like they're not religious. So what do you do with school? Like if a student asks me that, if you reply honestly, if you believe that you should reply honestly, you reply, or you stand mute. And you say, I can't answer that legally, which is the same as an answer in its own way. And that's all you can do. Now, there is one kind of saving grace that's not expected, that's actually really bad most of the way through education, which is tenure, right? I left a tenured job, meaning I basically couldn't be fired for anything unless I molested a kid or something. I couldn't be fired. So I wouldn't have been able to be fired from the district regardless of what I said. I could say whatever I want to kids, as long as I wasn't violating some gross standard of conduct. It wouldn't have mattered. So, people who work in schools are vulnerable, but not as vulnerable as you think. I think the people who are most vulnerable are not the people who work at schools, but the people who can just be fired on a whim. So if you happen to work for like the local hardware store and you get caught being a red pillar in a community that has some very, very vocal people on the left, you could find yourself fired overnight. I think they're more vulnerable than people who work in the schools. But the thing is that the schools start to self-select. There's a recursive cycle there. If you're working for the schools, teachers end up being self-selected, right? Which is why I'm not a teacher anymore. First of all, it's people who believe in the public school system. It's people who believe in the curriculum that they are being asked to be taught to kids, right? Or they're being asked to teach to kids. So if you're a science teacher and you have to teach global warming, like that's mandated by the state, and you know that it's basically a bunch of baloney, what do? Do you not teach it? Well, you're required to teach it. There's standards. You're tested on it, right? Or do you self-select away from it? You end up doing something different, right? So every step of the way, teachers are self-selected. People drop out of the profession a lot, and people think it's because the profession's super stressful or this and that, and those things might be true, but there's also just deeper, like kind of gut level stuff that happens with the teaching profession that will make people want to quit it. Just the fact that they know that the system's corrupt, that it's not really teaching kids, it's not doing a good job. That all those sorts of things. Interesting stuff. Great comment. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. By the way, people were always like betting on what I'm drinking. Today it's green tea. I was drinking a diet soda. Now it's green tea. There's a lot of gaming YouTubers who went to Twitch because of YouTube's dumb policies. Twitch is just as bad. Now, one of the things I'll probably do in the future is try to stream on several websites so that it's just more robust that way. Let me talk about robustness. So robustness is resiliency to harm. I'll put it that way, right? And if you divert, so the main way that you want to be robust in your social media relationships as an artist is you want to diversify. You should be on Elo, you should be on Minds, Gab, you should be on everything in addition to YouTube. There's also an opportunity with each social media thing that you're willing to engage with. There's an opportunity of anti-fragility, meaning someone tries to harm you by like coming after you, by like spamming at you, they're actually giving you more attention in the attention economy. That's the anti-fragility part of it. But for the most part, you want to diversify for robustness. You want to have several different income streams available, several different ways you can sell your work, several different work for hire things you can do, several different social media profiles, and you want to have a mailing list. Even if you're a visual artist, I think it's good to have a mailing list. Get on my mailing list. And every so often I send out an email with some updates and some cool content, some info. Maybe I give something away through the email. And just make sure you have a mailing list, because if they Alex Jones you across the board, you can still email people and tell them, hey, I got banned from Facebook, but here's my new page on Facebook, or here's my new page over here. So please check me out on this other side. Thank you. Nitaku says, I wonder what would happen if suddenly we lost the internet permanently. Perhaps this may be a good idea for a post-apocalyptic story of sorts. Absolutely. Well, the internet is a global phenomenon. It's globalist in its essence because it requires a global economy and all the things that go with it. So if international trade breaks down, so does the internet. If there's a war between various powers, the internet's gone, because it's a worldwide thing, and the internet it's very robust, but its robustness is limited. Like if the internet's off in China, it's off. We're not sending any messages to the Chinese people through the internet, and it is possible that they constructed a very large firewall for that event. That they can control what comes in and what comes out. But yeah, it would be an interesting idea for a post-apocalyptic story, mostly because there'd be a huge amount of information lost and you wouldn't know how to recover it. I think they did it with Warhammer 40K. They had like this dark age of technology where every colony had this basically supercomputer with all information man had ever acquired till then, and the information for how to make any machine. And, in the 40K universe, which is like 20,000 years later, they're still searching for these to try to recover this lost info. Is that with the downfall of the interstellar trade, the information got lost. Bell ringing, yeah. Normies are totally unaware of the culture war. Yes, but normies are also, they're people. They're the people that you need to talk to. Contrarian 420, don't you mean the chosen? Yeah, you could call them the blessed or the chosen. Don't apologize for quoting Revelation. More people should talk about biblical principles. Thank you for that, Archiver. I appreciate that. And that's the thing, is like, eventually you'll be asked to either lie or to speak the truth. And it's hard to deal with the consequences of speaking the truth if it's like you have a family to feed, It's a lot of faith to say, like, I think I'll be okay, even if I'm hurt. And I think that's why we probably need church community more than ever. Real physical people that love us and care about us, because if let's say you were really ingrained in a church and your business disappeared overnight because of something like this, the people that know you would help you find a job or get back on your feet or give you something to do, or fix dinner for your family one night a week until you could like do something different. Churches are full of deep connections. It's very good. And this is another thing, you can't have fellowship with people that aren't godly, right? Or you shouldn't try to. And I think we're kind of, you're kind of seeing that a little bit, right? It's not just social media that's banning people. They're going after people's bank accounts. Very mark of the beast stuff. Yes, totally. If you get kicked off Patreon, I mean, that's somebody who's supposed to pay you. It's just one dude wants to pay another dude, and they're like, nah, not allowed. It's crazy. People who show off blocks secretly cry on the inside. From Geekdom 101. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it, right? Don't show off that you got blocked. If you got blocked, it's whatever. Somebody blocked you on Twitter. No one cares. You should be, and people complain about blockchains too. It's like, this guy has a big block list. I'm like, I'm blocked by like Steve Shives and a million other people. Why? I don't care. Like, I don't care what Steve Shives' content is because I don't care what he has to say. So why do I care that I'm blocked? He took the time to block me ahead of time so I could never send him something he didn't want to hear. You know, if you're not blocking, you're giving other people the option to annoy you at according to their choosing. Why would you give someone else that power? It's stupid. You should block. You should block if someone annoys you, block them. No reason, right? And here's another thing too. It's like if somebody comes at me on Twitter, I look at their Twitter followers. They always have like 80 followers. If they have less than 1,000 followers, I'm just going to block them because I'm not going to convince them of anything by responding. So I'm really trying to convince their audience. If they don't have an audience, what's the point, right? Block them, move on. Don't give them the option to continue that conversation. That's my opinion. Other people have different opinions. Some people really like to hash it out on Twitter or in the YouTube comments. I've kind of moved past that. I used to do it. I kind of realized that it's a negative, right? It just makes you look like a jerk, and then makes, you don't convince anyone of anything, right? It just makes you look like a jerk. So if it's a kind-hearted saying, no, you're wrong about this, and here's what I think, I'll be like, absolutely, I'll respond to you and I'll have a conversation with you. But no one ever does that. They come out with like a bunch of insults. If you lead with insults, that lets me know exactly where you stand, which is, if you don't like me, why would you be upset that you're blocked? Jeff Ruther says, why can't you just have a good product that works? You don't need to go viral. If you chase the drama exposure, you're not building real loyal customers. Yes, that's actually a good comment. I like that. So the point is to build, which is why I'm like attract, and then you get rid of the negative Nancy's, and just keep the people that you really like, and give them content, or give them value, right? So if you're a writer, you should have something that you can give to people for free. Hey, come over, check out my website. I have a free book up there, or I have, you can read my screenplays for free, watch videos. Have something that you give people for free, because that is going to make people appreciate you a lot more than trying to sell them. Everyone's trying to get to the sale, and nobody's trying to offer value. And you kind of got to offer some good value. Now, if you have a good product that works, the question is how are people going to know about it? So either you do it through organic traffic, like you make content. Excuse me. You do it organically, like making content, or you advertise. And I don't think it's wrong to advertise either. Advertising is to get the word out on a good product. And if the product's good and people click it and they ask a question. So a really good strategy, let's say you're selling a product. It doesn't have to be a piece of art, but let's say you're selling a product. So you have an ad for it. If you have a way that gets people to ask a question, you got to get people to ask you questions. Like, have any questions about this product? Click here. And so if you can get someone to ask a question, and that's why Facebook's great, because that information flows both ways. They ask a question, you get a response, they understand greater the details of your product, and you lead them through it to be like, here's what we're doing, here's our product, here's our features. You're basically getting the person to interact with the feature list rather than having to see it on a website or something like that. And that gets them more interested in buying that product. So yeah, that is what you want. And how you get the attention's up to you. It doesn't have to be drama exposure. You could just do ads. Ads are fine, but ads cost you money, and drama costs you time and energy. So you can kind of go both ways there. Let's see here. The other doctor says, we are fragmented in this culture war, fanatic rationals and cannon fodder, and it's a nonstop strategy. The frantic toter normies into fodder. Not so long ago, normies were a friend you haven't met. Yeah, I still think normies are a friend I haven't met. right? And I don't want to be insulting by calling anyone a normie. It's just a person who's not like deep in the internet culture and stuff like that. They live a normal life and they want to read some books or they want to watch some YouTube videos. Geekdom's in the chat. They want to watch some videos on Dragon Ball Z or something like that. They're into Dragon Ball Z and they want to watch some content on it. That's it. That's all they want to do. You know, they don't want to get in some kind of internet fight. And frankly, I don't really want to get in internet fights either. So I'm trying to minimize them. I'm only going to get in them if I feel like there's an advantage. And otherwise, it's probably best to just move along. Yutaku says, especially if you want to draw people towards your art, it doesn't do much good threatening people over their opinions on art, both what you make and what you like. Yeah. So if someone comes on trying to like trash you, just be like, I'm in it to make art. Bye. $100 million and a $2 script. That is modern movies, ain't it? The cheapest part of a modern movie is the script, man. You can buy a spec script for like $15,000 or just option one for like $3,000 and think about making the movie and not pay the screenwriter till you're actually producing the movie. So you can option any story you want in Hollywood for $3,000. And then you only have to pay like $30,000 or $50,000 maybe. $100,000 if the person's like really a well-known screenwriter. $100,000 is a lot if you're just a dude writing a screenplay, but it's nothing for a studio. The script is like the cheapest part of it. It really is. Crazy Chameleon, would you consider reviewing Into the Spider-Verse? Since yes, I would. Actually, I really haven't watched it yet, but I really want to. Everyone says I got to watch it, so I'll check it out. Jared says, I remember wanting to like TFA after walking into the theater, yet deep down I knew I didn't like it. Yep. Crazy Chameleon says, what if the Sonic movie trailer used AC/DC Thunderstruck instead of Gangster's Paradise? It would make more sense, but I don't know why Sonic has like lightning quills. I don't know what that's about either. That's not really Sonic to me. I grew up with Sonic, so I don't know. I disagree with most people's opinions of the new Star Wars movies. Luke always wins when he doesn't physically fight, and it shows in the old and new trilogy. Okay, I have a lot of opinions and things that I want to share on YouTube regarding VGS movies, etc., but I'm bad at taking flack or insults. Is it a matter of manning up? I'm a bit afraid. So this is what a great comment from Terrapar. I'm not good at taking flacks and insults. Almost nobody is. Unless you're a sociopath, you know, it's going to affect you on some level. The question is, how do you want to react to it? And it's hard to have that inner zen where like you don't immediately react to a comment. But the first thing I think of whenever somebody comments is, what is this person saying about themselves? Because in most cases, when somebody leads with an insult, they're saying something about themselves. So if I say something that they don't like, and I'm usually pretty calm, I'm a pretty nice guy. So if they come into a chat screeching in all caps, it's the best I could put it. Like they're not physically screeching, but I get this a lot. People kind of spurging out and being angry. I said something that I knew that they knew was right, but they didn't want to be right. That's why they're so angry. A lot of times. So if I say something like, I did a video on like MGTOW stuff, most of the hate from MGTOWs was hatred directed towards themselves. You know, they hated themselves, which is why they hated me. So most of the comments weren't about me at all. And it's not easy, you know, they're always affected probably on some level, but when you understand that anytime somebody expresses something towards you, it's as much about them as it is about you. And if you're good at being able to figure that out, that's a great barrier. The other thing is you have to look at somebody who comments on a video. Now, let's say you're not a good presenter. You're not naturally inclined towards public speaking. And the first couple videos you make, someone comes on, they'll be like, man, this guy really sucks at presenting his points. And that's something that you can sit there and think about, but you shouldn't take that to heart because you're not practiced, right? There's nothing specific there for you to adjust other than to quit, right? So if you're looking to improve what you're doing, that's not helpful at all. If someone says, you know, and I've gotten this, people say, you put a lot of ums and ahs in your speech. I'm like, well, I'm talking off the top of my head. So those, I'm trying to remember what they're called. They're a normal thing to do. So I don't take it to heart, but I don't want to be super self-conscious with the ums and the ahs, but maybe I say them too much. Well, that's something specific I can think about correcting. Maybe if I slow down what I'm saying, then I won't do ums and ahs quite as much. Or if I'm just thinking about not doing it as I talk, I won't do ums and ahs very much, just like I'm doing right now. So that's an example of a specific one that you can think about, but that's not saying like you're a bad person. It's just saying you do a lot of ums and ahs. I'm not used to that. I don't like that. It's like, okay, they're not saying you're bad or what you're saying is bad. They're pointing something out. Most criticism's non-specific and is designed to make you feel bad. You got to remember that in the attention economy, it's all about attention. And so people will say whatever they can to you to get your attention. They'll say the most horrible things, hoping that you'll feel bad because what do they feel? They feel bad. That's why they're saying those things. If you feel good about yourself, you almost never say bad things to other people. If you notice this, on a really good day, have a really good day where like everything's going right, you asked out the pretty girl, she said yes, she says she's hoping you've been asking her out, you feel great. You're not going to walk down the hall, see a dude wearing bright green pants and like bright red shoes that look stupid and be like, your outfit's dumb. You're just not going to say anything to him because you feel good. You're not going to say anything bad to anyone if you feel good. That's pretty much how it works. So anytime somebody insults you, they're saying that they hurt inside. And so when they say that, I tend to have a little bit more human compassion depending on the situation. But more often than not, I'm just like, okay, well, I don't need that kind of negativity flying at me all the time because I'll think that it's about me and not about you. So I'll just block you from the channel. I'll just hide your comments and then I'll have to ever see them again. So it's not a matter of manning up. Part of it's manning up, but no. Most people receive 0 to 1 negative comments a day. And if you're exposed, you're going to get hundreds. And that's just, it's how it is. You have to figure out a way to cope with it. Some people don't read comments at all. I don't have that capacity. I really want the feedback for the videos because it helps me improve the content. If someone writes absolute garbage, wouldn't it be good to take a look at the reviews and see 9 out of 10 are bad? Thus, you shouldn't take it as a learning experience. I'm not sure what you mean. I think you're talking about when I'm like, write reviews. I don't know. It depends. Thus, you should take it as a learning experience. Okay, sorry, I misread that. Well, are they going to rewrite the book? Right? I mean, the learning experience is like, why didn't people like this? That would be the only learning experience. So you got to find specific things. But even then, it's like, are you going to rewrite the book? Or sometimes you write things for reasons beyond people giving it good reviews. Most of the books that I write, because my time is so limited and so precious, I don't write anything that I expressly don't want to exist independent of any other person liking it. Now, I may make a choice about little things depending on what I want, because I want to have an audience. But I don't sit there and be like, well, I need to. Some people are okay doing this. Some people write, quote, write to market. I don't really do that. I write what I want to write, and if there's a market for it, great. And if there's not as much of a market, I still created the art that I wanted to create, and that's what matters the most to me. So that's the highest priority. I don't get a lot of 9 out of 10 bad. I don't get a lot of bad reviews. And actually, all the bad reviews I have are from people who didn't read the books. So, but I read the reviews from time to time just to see what people liked or didn't like. Kind of see how my execution went with that book and kind of think about it for the next one. But I'm not gonna like change the book. For a lot of people, they only write one book ever. They don't write a whole lot of books. By asking for separation of church and state, you're asking me to leave the religion at the door. Absolutely. Farstar says, I'm a practicing Taoist, but unfortunately because I live in the United States, I'm told I have to believe in a God, a real entity. I was told by family that I can't not be Christian. Oops. Well, you should be Christian, but, whatever you want to be. So I don't know. I'm not super keen on like what the specifics of Taoism as a religion are, But you can imagine that if there was some state position that required you to act against your beliefs, that might be a problem. Either you stop being a Taoist or you stop working for the state. And you can have this with any kind of religion. It's not just Christianity. I mean, it could be Orthodox Judaism. It could be Islam, right? If you're a Muslim and your work doesn't give you, you need to pray 5 times a day. So if you don't have a break to pray, can you work that job? I don't know, right? If you have a job that requires you to show your hair and you're a woman and you feel that for modesty reasons you need to wear a hijab, I guess that means you can't work that job, right? And if it's for the state, that means you're excluded from the state. So it's not a big deal like it's not a big deal that strip clubs don't have Muslim representation at them, right? That's not really a big deal. But it can be a big deal with the state because the state has power over you, whereas the strip club has none. Let's see here. Anything else? If you're vulnerable due to being fired, that's why you need a personal brand. But that's a problem with deplatforming too, right? If you have a personal brand and you're deplatformed, it's the same as being fired, right? You lose a lot of traction there. If somebody had told me, yeah, you could lose everything anytime, I might have done things differently than I've done. I still have my own website. I have the mailing list, dvspress.com/list. That's all just in case. I don't break any rules on YouTube. I don't even push it on YouTube. I don't shy away from my beliefs, but I certainly don't break the rules. And so you kind of got to ride the ride till the wheels fall off. And that's what Paul Joseph Watson actually said about YouTube. You have to ride the ride till the wheels fall off because this is where people are. If you need to convince people, you need to get people's attention, this is it. Whoops. I missed a bunch of chats. They just all popped up. From Jonathan Nichols. Then there's buying up scripts so good movies don't get made. That's optioning. So a lot of times what'll happen is, let's say Fox is making a Dungeons and Dragons movie, and I have a Dungeons and Dragons script. They might option my script just so that another studio won't make it, because they don't want the competition. That actually does happen. Are you a fan of Jodorowsky's comics? Have you read Meta Barons and Incal? Meta Barons is my favorite comic lately. I'll check them out, but I haven't read them. I haven't read a lot of new comics. I probably need to read more of them. Use Supertramp bloody well right for a Sonic movie. I used to work with a guy who played in Supertramp. All right, what kind of musical score would you use for a Sonic movie? I don't know. I have no idea. I would try to do stuff that was like the games, though. I would have like Dragon Force or someone do video game music, I guess. Or you could do a chiptune soundtrack. That would be totally unique. Have someone like Disaster Piece do it. That'd be really cool. But I don't know how that would actually work out. And chances are executives would be like, we're not doing that. We're going to do a pop soundtrack score so people will feel the emotions we want them to feel based on the songs they're familiar with, blah, blah, blah. What do you think of Greta Van Fleet? A lot of hate that they're a Zeppelin clone, but good music nonetheless. I don't have an opinion. I don't think I have an opinion. It's okay. I can't think of a song off the top of my head. Nitaku. That's what bullies do. They try to make you feel bad so that they can feel better about themselves. It's like the old saying, misery loves company. The guys from Penny Arcade had this. They called it the Greater Internet. Either Dickwad or FWAD. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. But the point is you combine a captive audience with anonymity, and you get people that act horribly to each other. So the most basic vitriol the person has comes exploding. So that's why Xbox Live is full of people screaming racist epithets, is because they're anonymous and the other person has to listen to them. Thank you very much for the answer, sir. Greatly appreciate it. I appreciate you watching. Film Girl, my motto is to try and be the sunshine in the dark. I know it doesn't make much sense, but it helps me help others. Yeah. I try to be positive, but you also have to know when to be firm, when to not give ground, when to say no, I'm not doing that. And that's kind of where we're at, is we're getting asked to do things that we maybe object to. It's like, that's you have to figure out where your boundaries are and not violate those. Any tips to boost self-confidence? If you've already covered this, then never mind. Whoa, that's an interesting one. Since you are female, I don't know if my tips would work, right? Because I think my experience with boosting self-confidence, I mean, like it's impossible to separate your gender and your relationship with others as that interface. So first of all, you can be whatever you want to be. So if you want to be considered confident, you need merely act confident. And so if you have a capacity to act, or you've taken acting classes, it's not that different in real life. You put on the air of confidence. For men, it would be, it's like the Jordan Peterson thing. Stand up straight with your head forward and your shoulders back. So your posture, and I kind of lean forward into cameras a lot, but your posture, I'm wearing a dark shirt, so you guys totally can't see, but your posture determines a lot of what's visible, right? So when I walk around like the gym, because I'm working out, I end up with a posture that's very like powerful, because you have to be powerful to lift weights. And so you stop and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, man, I look like a big ass gorilla walking around in this place, right? I look all swole and like, but it's just posture, it's your energy. So knowing how to direct the energy that you want outwards. So even inside you're terrified, if you can just think of a script that's like head up, shoulders back, whatever. And I don't know what like a female posture of confidence would look like, if it's similar to a male posture or it's something different. But that's just your posture. Like if you think about your posture, that tends to focus your energy outward. Whereas if you're kind of hunched forward and collapsed, like you're like this. And I have a friend, and he used to talk about this. He's like, my default is just to be like this. And he was a Navy SEAL, right? So we're talking like best of the best in terms of physical quality, right? And like mental fortitude too. But he had stage fright. He's a musician, and he had stage fright issues. And he's like, I always walk around with like my energy collapsed in on me, kind of directed inwards. Like that's the introvert. You're directing your energy in. To be extroverted, you do this. So you can pretend to be extroverted if you don't feel naturally extroverted. I would not consider myself naturally extroverted, but I know, what to do there. So scripts help. This is a thing that can really help you if you have social anxiety, is a script. And so, I used to use a script, or me and my friends used to use scripts when talking to girls in like bars years ago, because it's hard to be confident, and if you don't have any experience and it doesn't feel natural, you do a script. And so the script is like, hi, how are you doing? So you approach sideways. Now that sounds weird, but it has to do with the way the energy you use. So you kind of lean in sideways. You don't immediately say hi. You look at something else, and then you look and you say hi, and you smile, and then you get the person to ask you a personal question. And the way that you get them to ask a personal question is you say something about yourself that's relevant to the situation, that's intriguing, right? It's like, man, they never have any Belgian beers here. And so the person might be like, have you ever been to Belgium? And it's like, I have been to Belgium. Let me tell you about the time I went to Belgium. I went to Bruges, and then you're talking and you're exposing part of yourself and getting to know this person. And then that person feels that they need to reciprocate, and she says things back to you, and before you know it, you're having a conversation. And if you can see that there's layers of compatibility, you carry it forward, get her phone number, go out with her, right? But you can use that for anything. So if it's, I don't feel confident, like let's say you're networking with someone. I don't feel confident going up and talking to this director, right? So this is a thing that people get when they get starstruck. It's like they don't know how to go up and talk to a person, right? It's like, oh, there's this person over here I really want to talk to. It's like you go over there and you just say the script. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm a big fan of your work. And I just wanted to come and say hi and ask you what you're working on right now, right? Have a follow-up question. What are you doing right now? What are you working on? And if somebody's like really into what they're doing, they're like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to meet a fan. I'm working on this. It's like, oh man, see, I would love to do this and that. And then eventually you can be like, well, I'm available for work if you need me. And then that's how you network. Some people send me emails like saying I'm available for work, and I usually respond to them. I think some of the ones around the time my daughter was born I didn't respond to, but I'm like, I appreciate that. I've made some big connections that way with people. So it's hard to boost self-confidence, but the short answer is, if you act like you're self-confident, you'll be perceived as self-confident, even if inside you're like shattering into a million pieces. And that's the problem. Everyone has some amount of anxiety in social situations, and I think it's getting worse as we become a little bit more separated because of social media. Physical confidence gets harder and harder to portray, but if you fake it, it'll be perceived in the way that you want it to. And I guess that's my advice. I will say that someone says, Dave, your hair looks glorious. Thank you. It's Costco shampoo, Costco conditioner. I really don't do anything to it. I don't blow dry it. Like I don't do any of the stuff that people do that wrecks their hair, and so it ends up kind of long and glorious. Now, I don't know if you can tell in this light. Let me transition here, and I'll talk a little bit about lighting and stuff like that. So here's some of the stuff that you need to know if you want to do a YouTube channel and face the camera. So for some of you, you may want to be anonymous and not face the camera. For some of you, you don't want to be anonymous. You want to face the camera. So let me give you a rundown of some basic equipment that you can use. I probably should have done this earlier in the video, but here it is, and I'll put this in its own video so you guys can know what's up. So first of all, get a good camera. Logitech usually has a series of 3 cameras, like a 4, a 6, and a 9. The one that I'm using right now is a Logitech 915, I think. Let me see. No, C920. I also have a C930, so I actually have 2 of these cameras. Now, these are the more expensive ones. But if you look at it, what happens is people don't think in investment terms. So they're like, well, there's a $60 camera and it's HD. That's probably all I need, right? I don't need to buy the $100 camera. It's like, but over time, that $100 camera will serve you well. So I have a $60 camera. I gave it to my brother-in-law so he could make videos. And my wife bought another a C930, which is a wider angle version of this one. I like the tighter angle because I like it to be on my face. But the wider angle one I use, like if I'll put it on, I have a second monitor over here. You guys are going to see just how messy my desk is right now, but you can see, I have a second monitor right there, and there's my phone. So I could put the camera right here, or I could put it on a little tripod. I have a bunch of little tripods everywhere, and I can show you guys like either this, or I could show you some keyboard part if I'm doing a music video or something like that. So it gives me another option. I have 2 cameras. Most of you won't need that. So the 900 series is what you should get. It's just the best, has the best quality, has the best options for lighting, all that kind of stuff. You want to find settings that make you look good. Notice I can adjust a little bit of this white balance so that I'm a little bit more Mediterranean when I turn the white balance over here. I'm a little bit more olive oil, a little less butter. Don't look quite so much like I'm from the British Isles. And I get over here is more natural. Now, in case you noticed, I actually use 3 different lights right now. I used to use 2. So when you're lighting, you want to use 2 lights at the minimum. You want to use what's called a main light and a fill light. So let me show you what those look like right now. Okay. The main light you can't see. I'm going to turn it off so you can actually see it. So it is a desk lamp that is covered with just a diffuser sheet. So there it is. It has a daylight light bulb. That's the highest white balance light bulb. It's a cheap LED light bulb. I think it's 60 watts, equivalent of 60 watts. I have 2 colored lights, as you can see, as my fill lights. So the more intense one to my right over here is a blue one. And that one's closer to me. It's blue. I don't put in a diffuser on it. I kind of want it a little more direct. This to me feels like I'm back on stage at the old clubs I used to play 10, 15 years ago. I feel at home with blue lights. And you notice a blue and a red light produce 2 different skin tones. So it produces a more 3-dimensional effect even when I turn on the main light. And you can actually reduce the intensity of the main light by backing it up a little bit. So if I back it up a little bit, the main light intensity is a little bit reduced. Okay. Bring it up a little bit more, and I will double over my diffuser cloth and bring it out away a little bit. In my old studio, or my old space, I had this bookshelves that I just kind of strung it between the lamp, and so it kind of lit up a much bigger area. Here it's a little more focused, but it still does the job. Diffuser cloths are easy. Next one, maybe you can see it over here. That's a red light, and it's a clip-on desk light I got from Home Depot with a red light bulb. You could also use like gel filters if you have those, but red light bulbs are like $5. So just do that if you want a color, or just use another daylight fill light and position it in such a way that it's less intense. So you want the intense one in the front, you want the less intense one from the side. I use 2 colors because it produces this, and if you can see, I don't know if you can actually tell because of the way things are. That light bulb's green. So I have a green light bulb and brown walls, and then I have like a yellow, like I have a lot of different colors. So even though you're probably not aware of it, there's a bunch of different colors that are being activated here, and it produces just a little bit more of a stage effect. This is the kind of stuff that we used to use to light stages, back when I used to do that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I got it from. This entire setup with all the light bulbs, all the lamps and light bulbs together were like $50, right? Cheap. Maybe $100 for a camera. I think I bought mine for like $80. So the hardware setup required so far with just the camera and the lights, really cheap. But you want to have good lighting. One of the things that'll happen, maybe I can show you. Okay, so here's like the main light in here. One of the things that'll happen is if you have a light that's above your head, it's going to make you look old. So let me here we go. If you have a light above your head, see how it looks like I have bags under my eyes? It's because I didn't sleep last night. We have an infant, right? So if you put like an intense light above your head, it tends to make you look sinister and old and weird, and you can see like the gray in my beard better. Maybe you can tell that like my hair is actually quite gray and not nearly as like chestnut brown as you would expect. So all the lighting is a trick to make me look better. And you notice I look thinner as soon as I turn this light off, right? It's not because I'm like super fat or something like that. It's mostly because the way the lighting works with my dark beard will make me look thinner and make me look younger. So if you have the light directly on your face, this is really true. If you're a woman, you don't want any lighting that is above. It's going to make you look tired and old, and it's going to make you're going to be able to see the makeup more. So if you're wearing makeup, you want to put the makeup on, and it's going to look good in the light. Right. Some people use those halo lights to get kind of their eyes lit up. Those look good for like makeup tutorials, but they don't look very natural to me, so I don't use one. So there's the lighting. Let's talk about the audio. So the audio I use, you can see my mic. This is a Rode NT1A. It's one of the originals, one of the first ones made back from 2002. Got it right when it was made. I've used it for a long time now. And this is the original shock mount too. I need to replace the elastics. They're quite bouncy. The little pop guard is an option. I just put it on there in case I want to get close to the mic. You don't hear the sound. It's actually not that important. You can do a windsock, or you can put just like a piece of like foam on it. If you have an extra piece of foam, you just put it over there, and it's a free pop filter that comes with your mic. When you actually mic somebody, I see lots of people that do this. They do this close miking thing, and they talk with their mic just like this. And this might sound okay, but it doesn't sound natural because you don't talk to people by whispering in their ear all day, although it's good for ASMR and things like that. You actually want the mic to be about 20 inches from your face, maybe more, depending on the acoustic quality of your room. That's because the resonance of your voice doesn't reach its full capacity until several feet away from you. Most of the time you're talking to people and they're just by you, right? And so you're not going to be talking quietly like you're in a mic, So these mics that kind of have it on your face, Don't do that. It's not going to sound natural. It's not going to sound like you, and you want to sound natural and good. And this is all that audio engineer stuff. If you that Rode into one, I use a it's not a super pricey interface. I use a Focusrite 18i8. 18i8. So I use an 18i8 Focusrite interface. You don't need that if you're just going to be doing videos. If you have a good condenser mic, must be a condenser mic. Don't use like an SM58. They're only going to pick up stuff right in front of you. It's for live. That's really for live sound that's very loud. Okay. Use a condenser mic. I'll give you a recommendation for a cheap one if you don't want to get a big bunch of things. Now, I'm saying cheap. It's relative, right? A Blue Yeti. So this is what I use when I'm doing mobile recording on my phone or somewhere else that I don't want to bring a big setup with, is just this Blue Yeti. It's a great mic. It's very, very easy to use. It's a USB microphone. It sounds great. I could use this if something happened. It's a backup mic. This is over $100 usually. I got it on an Amazon sale. You can keep a lookout for one. It's great. It does everything you need to do, and you could use it to record guitars. I've recorded some guitar tracks with this particular microphone, and it sounds great for recording guitar. The reason I have a complicated setup is because I do music as well, and most of you are probably not going to be doing quite as much with your setup as I do. And also, I've collected this equipment over 20 plus years in the business. It's easy to be impressed, like looking back and seeing like, oh, there's a bunch of guitars over there, and then there's a closet full of guitars, and it's like, wow, why do you have like 25 guitars? Like, dude, I've been in the business forever. You just end up collecting them. Okay. So those are my recommendations. Put the mic about 20 inches from your face, out of the frame of the camera is good. And it's going to sound more natural. The sound of a close mic, I was remarking about this with Final Fantasy XII. They mic'd everybody like this, and it has this feeling that's almost too intimate with the voice. So I like about 20 inches if I actually want to record any voiceover stuff. It sounds a little more natural. You hear a little bit more of the room, right? Which means you got to control the noise a little bit more, but it does sound more natural. And for YouTube videos, like the dog barks, I don't care. Which do you like better? Okay, so there's that. Now you can make your own YouTube videos, and the lava lamp, I'm afraid, I don't think they make that one anymore. I'm sorry. If you need a Godzilla, this is the Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. He's good. If you need a piglet, I don't know where that came from either. My wife gave that to me back when we were in college. I do have here's a really cheap, I have another one, couple other cheap ones. I don't know where they're at. Samson makes a really cheap SM58 that works as a USB mic that I've reviewed. It's a really easy way to get it really cheap, and it works with Android phones because it's a USB universal device or whatever it is. So it's great. All right, let's read the rest of the chat, and maybe we'll get out of here. Which you like better, Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction? Pulp Fiction. Trump 2020? Unless there's a better candidate. I don't think the Republicans will put out one. Are you familiar with the Interface series? Nope. I think the Sonic film should have been animated rather than live action. Me too. Why? I don't know why they wanted to do a live action. What's the point? I don't get it. What camera do you use? Okay, I went over that. C920. After hearing you speak closely into your microphone, I'm convinced that you should start uploading ASMR audio versions of your books to this channel. People have said that. I was going to do the Communist Manifesto ASMR because I thought it wouldn't get me banned, and then I didn't do it because it's like people may not realize this is a joke. I had a couple people tell me like a bunch of people are not going to realize that's a joke, Stu, and they're going to be really mad that you read the Communist Manifesto in a very soft, sexy voice. I'm like, And maybe I'll do some ASMR stuff for fun. And I might, one of the things that I'll probably do in the next few months as I have time. It's so hard to find time because right now I have an infant, But as I have time, I'm going to be putting all my gaming content on one channel, so it's all on one place, and that's going to be robustness, right? And I could do like an ASMR channel. You can only do so much with your time, so you have to decide how much time you have and what you want to do. Whispering into a close mic can be good for horror narration. Could be. It doesn't sound natural, though. It sounds like someone whispering in your ear. As a Christian, what are your thoughts about the revenge themes in Mad Max and Conan the Barbarian? Do you believe that it is spiritually unhealthy to enjoy such stories? I do not believe that. Unless you don't like reading the Bible, because the Bible's full of revenge stuff as well. So no, I don't think it's unhealthy, and that's partly because those things are not presented as virtues. I think a much better story is probably Count of Monte Cristo as far as revenge, like revenge that destroys you, like the problems with revenge. So I don't have a problem with them, really. I understand them. It's about what breaks the character and what motivates him. Conan has so many different cool stories too that aren't revenge. There comes a time when the gold no longer glitters and the jewels cease to shine. When I finish my story, should I copyright it immediately, even before the art is done? Okay, great question from MegaJetty1. Copyright doesn't work the way you think it does. So it's copyrighted by virtue of the fact that you created it. Meaning, copyright is just the term you use to note that you own it. You don't have to file with the Library of Congress for it to be copyrighted. That is just an extra legal step that you can go through, and I do recommend you do go through it. Just on the off chance, it's like $25. It's not that much money. Just on the off chance that someone tries to republish your book, and which has happened. It's really rare. Plagiarism almost never happens with fiction. Almost never. It's really rare that it does, and the things that people think are plagiarism are not plagiarism and will not hold up in a court of law. And there's been a lot of cases where that's the case. If somebody comes out with a story that's kind of like yours, it's not plagiarism. Plagiarism's they publish your book, which has happened. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. What I would do, so here's the thing. If you're the first person, if you publish it on Amazon or you publish it on your blog, it's copyrighted. You don't want to wait 6 months for like the Library of Congress to send you a letter that says, we have filed your work with the Library of Congress, for you to be like, I could finally publish this. No. And if you're publishing for a magazine, it's the same thing. It's copyrighted immediately. You own it. And then you're giving them the publishing rights, and then they publish it. Somebody's not going to see your story in Weird Tales or whatever anthology and then publish it themselves because they think you haven't copyrighted it. It doesn't work that way. So no, you're very safe. But one thing I would do is if you want to save money, if you're really hard up on cash, you can publish a collection of short stories as one book. And then that all of what's in that is filed and is in there. So that's something you can do. The Duda says, the Interface series is a story that was published in the form of Reddit comments. You should check out the Down the Rabbit Hole video about it. I could check it out. Sounds interesting. Published in Reddit comments. In Infinity War, Thanos kills 50% of the population. In game, the heroes wipe out Thanos and all his armies. Isn't it interesting how the victors in each film commit mass genocide? Yeah, but in one it's random. Well, first of all, the 50% that Thanos kills is way bigger than Thanos' armies. Way bigger. But it is. They do kill a lot of people. But those armies are attacking, so it's not really, Did the Romans commit genocide against the Cimbri? Technically, yeah, but the Cimbri were also invading Italy, so you got to think of that too. Jorge Warcrime says, if you did ASMR, I would die laughing listening to such wackiness. Then I'll do it. Film Girl says, thank you for all your advice. I really appreciate you taking the time and consideration to reply to me. I appreciate you watching. Christopher Feely says, what are your thoughts on the prevalence of progressive messages in popular movies, shows, books, etc.? Is this more pronounced than it used to be? So it is more pronounced than it used to be, but it's also, the messages are just kind of a passe, taken as fact kind of thing, whereas it used to be you would explicitly have those messages. People are like, oh, everything's feminist movies. Feminist movies are all awful. I'm like, I don't know. Boys Don't Cry is a pretty good movie, but it's explicit with its messaging, and Things which are explicit are less annoying because you know where they stand and you can make your own judgment value about it. I think now it's just kind of infused into something where you kind of feel like it's out of place. Someone was asking, I think it was the archiver, are they going to make Carol Danvers gay in the next movie? I'm like, well, the optionality is towards it. Partly because it's a lesbian, and if Pornhub searches are any indication of the data, relevant data, a lot of people will be interested in, they like lesbians. They think those are sexy, right? So you have that, and then you're also going to get plus points for the wokeness, and you're probably not going to have anybody object to a lesbian relationship. That is like your main fan base is male, and males, for whatever reason, think lesbians are sexy. So I was like, the optionality is probably towards that. But people have to stop and ask, like, at what point have you crossed over a line in showing alternative lifestyles? At what point do you have to show gays in cinema because how alternative does a lifestyle have to be, right? Like, there's a lot of people who are gay. Okay, so there can be gay characters or explicitly gay stuff, whatever. Like, what was that show? Will and Grace. But at what point does it become crazy where they're like, oh, Lando is a pansexual? I'm like, what? That's not in the movie. Who cares? Who cares about that? Or J.K. Rowling going back and making all of her characters like gay lovers. Have a good night from Vulva Dinah. Thank you. All right, let me finish these up and then I gotta go. Where was I? What's the distinction of copyright and getting a patent? A patent is for an invention and only lasts a certain number of years. Copyright is a lifetime and is a creative work. So a book, movie, music. Patent would be, how this lid on this cup works. This hinge might be patented, or this cup design is patented. So for a certain number of years, you can't copy the patent, or you have to pay the license fee for the patent. They cross over in the areas of code. We're not certain if code is copyright or patent, like computer code. Hey, David, please tell me your favorite theological YouTube channels. Thank you. So I like Dr. Taylor Marshall, who's it's a Catholic channel. So I like his channel a lot. He's a writer too, and writes fiction as well as other things. And I like Ryan Reeves's channel. So those are the two that I like the best, but there's others, so other people can share those as well. But those are the two that I like the best. Ryan Reeves does a lot of historical theology, and Taylor Marshall does a lot of Catholic theology, and he had a theology podcast to that effect. Film Girl, if I posted my own script book to myself, does that count as anything? Like copyright holder? Don't know if that's a thing. I told it was. No. But if you post it like on your website, it's just proof that you published it first, and therefore, in a court of law, if it came to that, the evidence is in your favor that you had the copyrighted work first. Whether you filed it with the Library of Congress in the U.S. or if you're in the U.K., there might be a similar thing. I don't know that much about UK copyright laws, but for the most part, copyright is just that you own it. You can sell the copyright, but that's done through a contract. Someone can't just publish something you wrote. That's illegal. It's a matter of proving that you wrote it. That's all you have to think about. And it's very rare. It's very rare that people do that. A lot of concepts of Jodorowsky's comics are actually taken from his Dune movie that was never made. Oh, yeah. In some ways, it actually is Jodorowsky's Dune in comic form. Interesting. So if I write it, people like Disney can't immediately make a butchered adaptation without my express permission. Not unless you really stretch the word adaptation. Like, they could basically rip it off, but they couldn't actually adapt it. And the thing is, they don't need to. Like, what they're going to do is they're only going to adapt things which already have a fandom. That's why they adapt it. It's a hedge bet. You find a book that is already successful and you adapt it, so that everyone who liked the book will go watch the movie. It's not because you can't come up with it. There's a million talented writers in Hollywood. Why don't they get any breaks? I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. It has to do with nepotism and hedging bets, but that's why they don't do the adapt because they can't think of the cool story. If you think of a cool story and then it's successful, then they're going to want to adapt it. But they'll want to pay you because they can pay you for the rights to the movie for like pennies compared to what they're going to make the movie for. $100 million movie, they buy the rights for like 50 grand. It's nothing. Same thing with the script, right? It's nothing compared to what they actually do. Unless you like have something really big like Lord of the Rings, then it's quite hard to license it. Actually, I have several short stories I've written all taking place in the same world. I've been thinking of taking the better ones and publishing them all in one book like you mentioned. I would do it. I'm going to do that with some of my short fiction whenever I feel like there's enough. Whenever I get to about 100,000 words, I'm going to put out just a short fiction book of like my novellas and novels, little novelettes and short stories and stuff that I put out over the years. The Sonic movie should have been animated in the Spider-Verse style. CGI 2D hybrid makes some... Yeah, it should have just been animated. I don't know why they did a live action. What are your thoughts on H.P. Lovecraft? I really like H.P. Lovecraft. He's excellent. I heard they were taking him off the Hugo Award, though, which is sad. Do you think there's a risk of libertarian ethic, of uber tolerance and diversity devolving into depraved moral relativism? Aristotle basically said that's what would happen, and the answer is yes. So already libertarianism and libertinism are kind of the same thing, which is why you have Reason Magazine has for years now promoted, drug use, has promoted polyamory, has promoted all kinds of degenerate things. So Reason Magazine used to be very much about eliminating restrictions, especially economic ones, and now it's mostly about promoting alternative lifestyles as far as those things go, right? They will put people on that explicitly endorse the use of psychedelics or daily use of marijuana. Of course, you had Gary Johnson, Pot Lord Gary Johnson, run for president, made a fortune selling marijuana. Not the kind of guy who you want to run if you actually want to win an election or gain attention. But yeah, Reason Magazine just, they're anti like sex offender registry. They've become very depraved over the years. It's kind of weird to see the devolution of Reason Magazine into something that's like really about alternative, it's good to have those things rather than we just shouldn't put people in jail. Are you aware of the Count Dankula case in the UK? Yes, I've already made some videos on it. What's the best way to anonymously publish a book? Publish it under a name that's not yours. You can do it independently. You can make a fresh account. The thing is, when you want to get paid, you're going to have to use you're going to have the payment go to something that can be verified that you own. So, it'll be published anonymously. You can do it with Drafted Digital or Amazon. You just publish it under a name that's not yours. Or, you publish it under a pen name when you go through a publisher and just say, I really don't want my real name out there. Almost all erotica is published anonymously these days because there's big negative real-world consequences for publishing erotica. Jay Dyer is another great theological Christian channel. Thank you. Apropos Kira's question, thoughts on using a pen name? So yeah, using a pen name is very easy. In fact, I can publish under my same account, my same KDP account. I can publish under a pen name. Just where it says author name, you can put whatever name you want there, and it'll be published under that author name. No one will know it. No one will know it is you. Leave the publisher blank. It just says independently published. Or you can have a publishing imprint that you make up that hides that. If they want to adapt it and find it horrible, am I right to take it? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Ron Paul? I like Ron Paul a lot. There's more that I could say about like what happened in the 2012 election. Basically, he should have been the nominee in Nevada. My roommate went to the convention, but the people running it just said that, because it's a caucus. So it's a bunch of people that are like, yelling, Ron Paul. And it's like, they're like, Mitt Romney has it. And it's like everyone in the entire state was like, no, we wanted Ron Paul. It's like, no, Mitt Romney has it. He was basically had the state stolen from him, is my understanding. That's why it was so surprising to see Donald Trump be nominated, because the Republican Party hates him. But they couldn't do anything about it. He played by their rules and won. And then he played by the rules of the election and won. And it's made everybody mad for years now. Terrapar, maybe I missed it, but do you happen to see my second question? I didn't see a second question. I'm so sorry. Maybe you didn't at me. Sorry, didn't see a second question. Anyway, I got to wrap it up here, folks. What are your thoughts on young adult literature? What do you like and dislike about it? I don't have a lot of thoughts about it. I'm going to do maybe a video series on Twilight. Don't expect me to say too much positive things about it, but I don't like the blogosphere that's around it, and I don't even really know what young adult means anymore. I just read the books I want to write, and I'll focus on young adult really at all. Since this is the first stream I participated in, I would like to say that I appreciate your videos, especially the reviews. Keep up the good work. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. I probably need to call it there. I appreciate you all watching and tuning in and giving me the questions and listening to what I have to say about social media. I will probably put more of this stuff in some separate videos as time goes on, and we'll see. So that'll be a little bit easier to access. I mostly wanted to get the questions for that stuff because it's really good to have the questions before you're trying to make evergreen content on it. All right, last things. Video games in Hollywood both have super high budgets and production values, but feel so boring and uninspired. Yeah, it's like you're polishing, something tried to be as it's like a hamburger. Most people will like it. Let's see here. Hollywood needs to be destroyed for the good of the creative future. How do we do that without resorting to nukes? Revise copyright system or make it impractical for Hollywood to make money. Hollywood already has all of its productions in like Georgia and other states because it's too expensive to film in California. Eventually, they just won't do business in Hollywood at all. Hollywood won't be the hub. It'll just be Toronto or somewhere else, All right. Thanks, guys. All right, one last question, Mega Jetty, because I do want to get this. My story is currently written like a movie script. Example, when a character speaks, I write it as character. My name is blank. Is it okay to publish it like that? You can try, but readers won't read it. If you're writing it as a book, it needs to be prose in the traditional sense. The format does matter. It's what people are used to. If you're writing a script that's meant to be filmed, you should write it as a script. That's my short answer. That's if you want people to read it. You can do something weird and people might like it anyway. But I wouldn't bet on it, right? I wouldn't put my money on it. So anyway, guys, I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.